of different reasons. I had some stuff that I was getting together, so I'm just a little bit late. I want to apologize to everybody that was holding on, and then they was like, "Where's Jack at? He's taking too long over here." I want to apologize to all of y'all. I'm gonna say that right off the rip. I was busy doing a thing, and I had to take a call, and so that's why I'm a little bit late. But real quick, I'm gonna let y'all know what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be going over the closing statements of the prosecution and the closing statements of the defense first, and then we're gonna go over the directives that the judge actually gave the jury. I think that's important because once again, there's a lot of people that don't know what the hell is going on in court. They don't understand that the jury actually get directives that they have to use while they're evaluating whether they're going to find a person not guilty and or guilty. Well, not guilty or guilty. Real quick, shout out to Problematic, Melly Mel, Ayrton, Gucci, Ganju, Roach, salute. Hollywood, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. What up, 799? Hope everything is going well with you. What up, Daisy May? What up, Sharice? How you doing? LaRon Ben, don't know that guy, but he's cursing me out. Shout out to Fox 5, Little B since 1983. Salute to the Bay. Hope everybody is doing well today. What up, Dark Side? Who else we got up in here real quick? That's it. Hit that like button. And we're about to get right into some of these lotions on my hands real quick. If y'all not using this, I don't know what you're using, by the way. If you're not using this, I don't know what you're using. With that being said, before I open up this book, what up, M Squared? With that being said, before I open up this book, I just want to say I want to give a special thanks and salute to everybody that has been supportive of this platform. Very, very, very soon, I expect for all of the support and all of the love that you've given me over the years or however long that you've been here to actually pan out. And I want to say salute to New Line Entertainment. Once again, we had our brothers from Philly come up showing TAXSTONE support. They came up here to show TAXSTONE support. Shout out to New Line Entertainment. They came up here to show the the homie TAXSTONE support with his current situation. I'm gonna push this couch over this a little bit closer that way. They came up here to show their support to TAXSTONE in this turbulent time for him. Shout out to New Line Entertainment. Shout out to New Line Entertainment. That's a whole fact. Hopefully y'all have some more news in the future regarding them. But right now, we're going to be, they're probably going to be, I was going to be quiet. But as of right now, we're going to go over, because in court, I spoke to some people in face-to-face, and they said, Jack, your show be too long. So what we're going to try to do is, we're going to try to get to the content right now. First thing I want to say is this. The prosecution and the defense did an exemplary job this whole entire trial. Also, with the closing statements, they did a great job, the defense and the prosecution, on the closing statements. I can say that this can go either which way. There's just no telling. I'm not going to stand here and tell you, I think this is going to happen. I'm not going to stand here and tell you, or sit here and tell you, I think that is going to happen. I'm going to limit the chat questions. I'll start taking questions at 75 likes this time. That's going to take us a minute to get there. But hit that like button. First thing we're going to do before I get to the closing statements is they had a little bit of business in the beginning of court. I'm just going to go over the little bit of business that they had in the beginning of the court. And then we're going to start with the defense's closing statements. So they did allow, so they did allow for the new charges. I want to explain this real quick. I'm going to explain this now, and I'm going to explain this a little bit later. So basically, manslaughter was added and attempted manslaughter was added. Also, reckless assault was added. The way this happens, copy. I'm going to go get the mic. The way this happens is, just so we can get a better understanding, give me 1 minute. Copy. We're gonna go get the mic. Shout out to Mr. Jackson himself, 444 with the $30 drop. He said, "Go get this mic. We're gonna go get a mic that's gonna help us be a little bit more audible over here when we speak." With that being said, shout out to everybody that does the drops before the show even gets all the way underway, because you know I'm gonna bring you the nitty gritty. With that being said, when they allowed the new charges, just so we can be clear, I want to explain this to you before we even do the closing statements. They allowed manslaughter 1 and they allowed attempted manslaughter. That's manslaughter 2. So basically, the difference is manslaughter is also reckless assault on 3, 4, and 5. But hold on. I'm going to explain the manslaughter thing first. Basically, what he is initially being charged with, give me 1 second. I'm trying to be quick. So what he's initially being charged with is the first count is murder in the second degree. That's what he's initially being charged with. What's being added is manslaughter in the second degree. So this is how this works. They can't find him guilty on murder in the second degree and manslaughter in the second degree. But what they can do is, if they go into murder in the second degree and they believe that there was the intent to cause death, and then death was actually caused, that's murder in the second degree. So there has to be intent. Also, just so we can be clear, the intent doesn't mean that he had the intent to do it because he was thinking about it since last night. The intent just has to be there at the contact of the event. So if he wasn't thinking about killing them, but let's say you got an individual with a bat, so they got a bat, so they swing the bat, and they swing the bat with the intent to murder the person, even though 5 minutes before then they had no idea that they even was going to run into this person, so they couldn't have had a preconceived plan to do this. That's still murder with the in the second degree, because when they swung the bat with the intent to murder. So if the jury agrees, or should I say, they say not guilty on murder in the second, that's the only way that they could consider manslaughter in the second degree. If he's found guilty of murder in the second degree, manslaughter in the second degree cannot even be considered. You understand? So that's the charge that was added. Also, just so we could be clear, assault in the first degree with a deadly weapon was also added. Basically, assault with the first degree with a deadly weapon, that is the when they're saying when Troy Ave was shot. Basically, that does not require a person to intended to be injured. All it has to do is okay. So basically, assault in the second degree with a deadly weapon. That's only because a person caused serious injury. Just so we can be clear, and he can only be found guilty of assault in the first degree with a deadly weapon if the jury decides that attempted murder in the second degree, he's not guilty. So if he's not guilty, if they find him not guilty of murder in the second degree, then they have to consider manslaughter in the second degree. But if they find him guilty of murder in the second degree, manslaughter that's off the table. If they find him not guilty for attempted murder in the second degree over Troy Ave, that means that's the only way that they even consider assault in the first degree with a deadly weapon, just so we can be clear. And then there's a couple of other charges, but I'm going to get into the close. I'm going to finish this off and then get into the closing statements. I just thought I wanted to be clear on that because that's something that we had a conversation with about previously. Anyway, Esquire said the jury should have limited instruction on the gun charges in federal court defense with the request. For everybody that want to be clear, what he means by that is they should only have limited information on how TAXSTONE pled guilty in federal court for the gun charge, because if they have more than limited information, basically that could be prejudicial. You understand? So they have to have only limited information. That's what Esquire asked. The judge says in the closing basically what the lawyers say is not evidence. What they're saying in the closing is not evidence, just so we can be clear. Everything that I tell you in the closing statements, that's not evidence. Also, if the jury's memory of the evidence conflicts with what the lawyer says in closing, they are to use what their notes in their memory is over what the lawyers say in closing. So if the lawyers say something, but they remember something different, or if the lawyers say something and their notes say different, they're supposed to go with their notes or what they remember, not with what the lawyer says in closing. That's one. I just want to add this just so we can be clear so I don't miss nothing. Also, if their notes conflict with what the court reporter writes down, the stenographer, they're to go with what the stenographer has written, just so we to be clear. So whatever the lawyers is saying in closing, that is not evidence in no way, shape, or form. Also, they will make arguments in what the evidence proves or disproves, and the lawyers' position, if you agree with it, basically saying that the lawyers are going to make arguments about the evidence, and it proves or disapproves. You can make basically your own opinion. Whatever the lawyers say, you can then take that into your own opinion, basically, because it doesn't prove or disprove anything. It says if you agree with it. You understand what I'm saying? So if the lawyer says something and you agree with it, that anyway, gonna move on. You must rely on the judge for your understanding of the law. You can't rely on anything that the lawyer says in the closing statements having anything to do with the law. And also, the lawyers are free to discuss how the law applies to fact, just so we can be clear. The lawyers are free to discuss how the law applies to fact. And for everybody that don't know, during a lawyer's closing statement, objections can be made. With that being said, Esquire comes first. Esquire says that Daryl Campbell has to be presumed innocent. That's the first thing that he tells the jury. And Daryl Campbell has to be presumed innocent. I got to do two things real quick. Yeah, the first thing is I don't know if I have an admin in here, so y'all might be writing comments that I need to let go past when I get the opportunity. And the second thing is that I always forget to put the Cash App in the chat, and that is a mandatory thing. So give me 2 seconds. All right, so here we go. So just so we could be clear, Daryl Campbell is presumed innocent. So basically, no matter what the prosecution says, he's presumed innocent. Meaning, just because he's on trial, that does not mean that he's guilty of anything. I'm going to say that again. Just because he's on trial, that doesn't mean that he's guilty of anything. It only means that he's the accused. Also, Esquire goes on to say, just because one is accused, that doesn't mean that they are guilty. Just so we can be clear. Also, the prosecution has to have credible evidence. Just because the prosecution says a thing, that does not make it a fact. The prosecution could say whatever they want. That doesn't make it a fact. The prosecution could come and say, this is evidence, that is evidence, that is evidence, that is evidence, but that does not make it a fact. The evidence has to be credible. Also says, you cannot presume without the facts. Meaning, just so we could be clear, you know how people will say, you'll be in a conversation with a person and you'll say a thing and then they'll say, yeah, but what if? That doesn't work here. This is a man's life. We can't go for what ifs. You can't just make up speculatory comments. And because you ask a question, that's not proof or disproof of anything. That's basically what I'm always trying to tell people when they come into the chat saying some weirdo shit. That's not proof or evidence or lack of proof of evidence of anything, because a person could come up with a question about something. That's just a question in any regard. Thinking something is probable or possible is not guilt. That's basically what I just told you. Esquire said, look, just because you think something is probable, that doesn't mean that it happened. Just because you think something is possible, that doesn't mean that it happened. That doesn't mean guilt. You have to be sure. You have to be sure beyond a reasonable doubt. Anybody could say something is possible. Anybody could say something is probable. You have to be sure beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution accused. The prosecution, their witnesses are all cooperators. So basically, the prosecution is saying just because they chose that they are now telling the truth. Like now they're telling the truth. But what about all of those crimes that they committed? This is what Esquire said. Look, these guys are career criminals. They're career criminals. They've been committing crimes. They've been lying out of so they don't get in trouble. They've been career criminals for XYZ amount of years. Now, all of a sudden, they just decided that they're just going to tell the truth when it's about TAXSTONE. Now, all of a sudden, they're telling the truth. All those other times that they've been committing all of those crimes for all of those years, they was lying their asses off. The prosecutor didn't believe nothing. But now, when they got evidence against my client, this is what Esquire is saying. Now that they got evidence against now that these guys is becoming to decide that they're going to say something against my client, now they believe them. About when they told you they didn't believe those crimes. Those same crimes that they're now in trouble for, how about when they told you they didn't do them? You didn't believe them then, right? He didn't say that part. I just added that so you can get an understanding of what he's trying to say. These guys are career criminals who have been lying for X, Y, Z amount of years. Now, all of a sudden, we're to believe everything that they say about TAXSTONE is true? He says, the prosecutor wanted you to believe people who lie, who live a life of lying and avoiding penalties are now being honest and telling the truth. I'm going to say that again. He said, the prosecution wants you to believe that people who live a life of lying and avoiding penalties are now telling the truth. He said the prosecution just repeated what Troy Ave told them. So the prosecution, he's saying, don't even know what happened. They just repeating what Troy Ave said on the stand. That's it. So basically, they're saying that the prosecution, he said that the prosecution's case is based off of Troy Ave's credibility, who is a cooperating witness. Their case isn't based on anything else other than how credible do you consider Troy Ave to be. Then he said, in a world where people make money off of publicity, Troy Ave was angry over TAXSTONE for making negative comments. I'm going to explain how this works. Let's say you have somebody who has no following talking shit about you. That's not doing you no good. But let's say you have somebody who have a bigger following than you, known more than you, has as much clout as you or more clout than you, talking shit about you. That shit talk is going to turn into money. See, when you got people that's lower than you talking about you, imagine somebody talking about you who can't even get 100 people in their live. Somebody talking shit about you who don't get no views. That's not benefiting you. TAXSTONE gets views. So basically, Troy Ave was upset that somebody who speaks his name all the time, therefore, basically keeping him in the algorithm, he's angry at this guy in a world where when people talk shit about you, that's considered publicity and brings you money in any regard. He says, he goes on to say, Troy Ave is the only one to have seen TAXSTONE shoot Banger, allegedly shoot Banger. Once again, this whole entire case is based off of Troy Ave and whether you think he's credible. He said, Banger is not security. He was a strong man. He's a strong arm. Banger attacked multiple people in the music industry, said he is not security. He said TAXSTONE went through the front, which is an odd way to sneak a gun in. Because they're saying TAXSTONE was attempting to sneak a gun in, but he went through the front of the building. He said Troy Ave saying he didn't have... I think I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. He said Troy Ave said he didn't know that Banger was shot. Appreciate you, Jay. He said Troy Ave said he didn't know Banger was shot. He said the room was so crowded, young Lido never even got inside. He said the room was small and it was packed. Give me 1 second. He said, appreciate you, Problematic. He said the room was small and it was packed. So basically, how could he have not seen Banger get shot? He says, he tells Troy's story, basically, and says Banger says that they'll rock him and then hit him and tries to grab the gun. Basically, they saw TAXSTONE had a gun on him and then they attacked him. They saw TAXSTONE had a gun on him. Troy Ave said they saw the gun. And then after they saw that TAXSTONE had a gun on him, they attacked him. He told Troy Ave's story. Banger says that they'll rock him, then he hit him, and then they tried to grab the gun. That's Troy Ave's own story. He goes on to say, Banger wasn't able to struggle after the first shot, but Troy says he was. So basically, he said this. Now, this, first of all, R.I.P. Banger says this. Listen and pay attention. Banger was shot twice. Banger was shot here in the shoulder. And also, he was shot basically in the same area, but in a downward motion. And the round, the bullet actually rested in his pelvic, in his down here near his pelvic bone, in his the floor. I forgot what they call that. So just so we could be clear, the damage that Banger received stopped his heart. The doctor said that. The doctor said that the shot that Banger, the damage that Banger received from the shot, it stopped his heart. So how could Banger have been helping Troy Ave fight and then get up and run out into the other room where he fell out? R.I.P. Banger. Because the doctor said after your heart stops, you could have more, but you don't have that much time. So how, after Banger's heart stopped, was he able to still help Troy Ave fight and then go into the other room? This is what he said. Remember, that's one of the stories that Troy Ave gave. He said initially, Troy was responsible with criminal negligent homicide. Before they decided to go after TAXSTONE, apparently, Troy Ave was responsible for criminally negligent homicide. Then they showed the TMZ video and the video of everyone running out of the room. They said Troy Ave says he isn't scared of guns. He said if you pull a gun on him, it's like spitting in his face. This is what Troy Ave said. When they showed the TMZ video, just so we could be clear, when they showed the TMZ video, they showed the TMZ video and then they lined it up with the other video to show that there was stuff going on in the room, basically before, because remember, the TMZ video, it starts after all of the action already began. So they already had stuff going on. There was already tussling. There was already fighting. There was already stuff going on before the video even started. So TAXSTONE's defense is that they attacked him. That's TAXSTONE's defense. They attacked him. That's his defense. That's what they're saying happened. Now, in the TMZ video, the shots don't immediately go off, just so we could be clear. And the TMZ video starts after the situation already began. So we can't really ascertain how long the fight had been going on or what was going on. But obviously, there's a lot that happened before that first shot, just so we can be clear. That's what Esquire is saying. Went on to say, Troy also came out the room shooting. If you want to copy a popular Loner merch, link is in this description. This is our merch. Then he goes on to say, rumor, Troy Ave said during the interview, I think the interview with DJ Academics, that he's not scared of guns. If you pull a gun on him, it's like spitting in his face. That's what he says. He goes on to say, Troy came out the gun shooting. Now they're still showing the video. And one of the things they wanted to show in the video is everybody had a sense of urgency to get out of the room except for Troy Ave. So everybody was trying to get out of that room as quickly as possible, except Troy Ave. This is what Esquire is saying. I'm just repeating what he's saying. Please don't nobody take any of the closing from the defense or the closing from the prosecution like these are my words. These are my interpretations, but this is what they said. He said everyone had a sense of urgency to get out of that room except for Troy Ave. He said the prosecution also, they didn't call the young lady that got shot in the leg. Why didn't they call her to be a witness? Wouldn't she have seen or probably been close enough, whatever the case is, to see who fired the shot? Don't forget, they called the dude that got shot from downstairs, but they didn't call the young lady that got shot in the leg. Also, just so we could be clear, for all of the evidential, the police officers and everybody else, all of those people were substitute witnesses. They didn't have like any of the actual people that did the autopsy. They didn't have any of the actual people that did the forensics. All of the people that did the autopsy and did the forensics, they had substitute witnesses in there. One guy was out of the country. So just so we could be clear what's being said here, how could the defense interrogate somebody that's only there to read somebody else's notes? How could the defense cross-examine somebody who's only there to read somebody else's notes? They didn't do the actual autopsy. They didn't do the actual forensic work. These are just substitutes. With no disrespect to them, I'm pretty sure that they're great at their job. They know what they're doing. These people are exemplary. I'm not doubting that. All I'm saying is they weren't the actual ones that did the legwork. They didn't do the actual work. The people who are caught in the court, they're just reading their notes. That's it. So the defense team doesn't even, all you could do is ask them questions based on their notes. You can't ask them questions based on what they actually did, because those people aren't there. In any regard, he goes on to say, TAXSTONE was the only one that had DNA on the floor. Now, if you recall, their whole thing is TAXSTONE got attacked and beat up and was basically bloody from the attack. TAXSTONE's the only one that had DNA on the floor. When Troy Ave was on the floor, that's when he allegedly got shot, correct? The witnesses all lawyered up or disappeared. Miss Ibrahim says that they jumped on Tax as soon as they entered the room. Once again, the police recovered the DNA. The police said that the only DNA they recovered off the floor was TAXSTONE's. Just so we could be clear. The police said the only DNA they recovered off the floor was TAXSTONE's. He goes on to say, the witnesses all lawyered up or they just disappeared. Then he goes on to say, the DNA isn't supportive of TAXSTONE's the DNA isn't supportive of a TAXSTONE conviction. because there was a lot of other people's DNA also on the gun. Remember, they got Troy Ave's DNA, they got TAXSTONE's DNA, and they have one other person's DNA that don't nobody even know who that person is because they didn't even try to find out. I'm going to say this again. They got Troy Ave's DNA, they got TAXSTONE's DNA, and they have a third DNA that they never even tried to find out whose DNA that was. They said 3 people's DNA was on the trigger: TAXSTONE's, Troy Ave, and unknown. I'm going to say this again. 3 different people's DNA was on the trigger: TAXSTONE's, Troy Ave, unknown. Also, they didn't test the entire gun. And once again, I don't think that that person actually came to court either. It was all substitutes. In any regard, at least 4 to 5 people's DNA is on the gun. How can you determine whose finger was on the trigger when the fatal shot was fired? I'm going to say that again. I'm going to say that again. There's at least 4 to 5 people's DNA on the gun. How can you determine whose finger was on the trigger when the fatal shot was fired? I'm trying to set this up so I can see this a little bit easier. Then he goes on to say, the prosecutor decides if the cooperating witness is lying or not. Basically, when a cooperating witness, when a witness becomes a cooperator, the DA is the one who basically decides whether they're lying or not, is what he's saying. It's the DA. The DA is just saying, what, we're going to take what you're saying is the truth. Or we're going to take the thing that you're saying is not the truth. That's the DA's office. That's what he said. He goes on to say, everything is a movie to Troy Ave. Remember, Troy Ave is basically the individual who the case is based off of story and testimony. So he says everything is a movie to Troy Ave. Every time Troy Ave tells a story, it's a freaking movie. Everything is way too, everything is super incredible. He said Troy Ave initially lied about the guns, and he tried to get his friends to take responsibility. Remember, credibility of the witness. Credibility of the witness. The prosecutor decides if the witness is telling the truth or not. Troy Ave initially lied about the guns and tried to get his friends to take responsibility. Remember, it's already been brought up in court that that's why he had a falling out with young Lito and allegedly had a falling out with Hovain, R.I.P. Hovain. As far as the young Lito situation is clear, young Lito allegedly threatened, as far as what Troy Ave said in his own testimony, young Lito threatened to go to the DA if they asked him to take responsibility for the gun just one more time. He was going to go to the DA. Anyway, Esquire continues, that violated the conditions of his bail. When he asked those dudes to take responsibility for that gun, he's basically tampering with his own case. Right? That violates the conditions of his bail. He was not rearrested though. They gave Troy Ave back everything except for his illegal guns. The prosecution made him look like it was okay that he had illegal guns. If you remember, during the prosecutors, when they was initially speaking with him, the prosecution allowed for him to explain away why he had his illegal guns and explain away why he had the compartment in which way he kept the illegal guns in. And Esquire is saying they made it sound like it was okay that Troy Ave had these illegal guns. I mean, he's getting charged for the guns, but they made it sound like, as far as Esquire is concerned, they made it sound like it was okay for him to have these illegal guns. Esquire goes on to say, the prosecution used a witness that told on everybody, including his own girlfriend. Once again, they're talking about the credibility of the witnesses, the cooperating witnesses specifically. He's talking about the credibility of all the witnesses, but the cooperating witnesses specifically. Troy Ave tells stories, and this dude right here, he snitched on absolutely everyone. And on top of that, everybody he snitched on is either home already or about to come home. He even told on his own girlfriend. My dude, I don't even know where they... Can we just stop for a second? I want to say this. Just forget everything about the case real quick. Everything about the case. Like, niggas is really out here doing that. Like, I mean, it is what it is, but dudes is really snitching on their own girlfriend. And then the thing about it is, and I just got to say this, he sent her to go do the thing. He sent her to go do the thing he snitched on her about. What the hell, fam? I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about. That's just fucking bonkers, homie. That's your woman. He sent her to go do the thing that she don't even do. Then he snitched on her. Any regard, let's get back to what we're talking about. Esquire then said, Malcolm agreed that cooperators lie. Malcolm's a cooperator. Troy Ave is a cooperator. He goes on to say, Esquire goes on to say, Troy Ave's making songs about the situation. Tax arrested because of 2 cooperators. He goes to say, 6-7 years, they haven't found another witness in a crowded room. So this room was crowded. Everybody admits that the room was crowded. Troy Ave said the room was crowded. Every single witness says the room is crowded. Every single person admitted that the room was crowded. How the only person that's seen TAXSTONE fire that gun is Troy Ave? That's the only person? They had 6 to 7 years to find at least one more person that saw it. They couldn't find anybody? This is what Esquire is saying. These are not my words. This is what Esquire is saying. These are not my words. This is what Esquire is saying. He said the video is consistent with what Oscar said happened. Oscar was the first person that came out the room. He said Miss Ibrahim says she was sitting on the fridge and the foot got stuck under the door. Neither witness say they saw Troy Ave fire the gun. So just so we could be clear, what they're saying is that they're not trying to bring witnesses up that's going to cap. Because if they wanted their witnesses to lie, to cap, why didn't they just have the witnesses say that they saw Troy Ave fire the gun? None of the witnesses that came up for the defense even said they saw Troy Ave fired a gun. They was busy doing other shit. They didn't see who fired the gun. So if they were gonna have people come up and lie, why didn't they just have them say that Troy Ave fired the gun? Esquire goes on to say, they know their evidence does not point at TAXSTONE. They know that the evidence that they have do not point at TAXSTONE. They said if the prosecution theory leave you with questions, you cannot convict. And that's what the judge said. The judge says that if you're left with questions about what did and or didn't happen, you cannot convict TAXSTONE. It has to be not guilty. He goes on to say, Esquire, Troy Ave got bit on his wrist. Why would you bite somebody on the wrist? To get them to drop something. If you are enjoying any of the content, you could always pull up to the Cash App. I'm going to say that again. Esquire said, Troy Ave got bit on the wrist. Why would you bite someone on the wrist? To get them to drop something. I'm going to need y'all to give me a second. I'm going to go I'm going to go refresh my coffee and hit and turn this water on real quick. I'll be right back. All right, gonna give it a minute, let that boil. I said 3 people's DNA was on the trigger, but in total, there was 4 to 5 people's DNA on the entirety of the gun. You're just here to ask questions, right? You're about to get kicked. Anyway, once again, Troy Ave got bit on the wrist. Esquire said, Troy Ave got bit. Esquire said, that person is slow. Troy Ave said, probably they not slow. I don't know. Whatever. Let me not say that. Anyway, Esquire said, Troy Ave got bit on the wrist. Why would you bite somebody on the wrist? To get them to drop something. Once again, implying Troy Ave actually had control over the gun. In 1 second. And just so y'all know, I got in trouble for filming inside of the fucking part of my language. And just so y'all know, I got a little reprimanded for filming inside of the courthouse today. I was told I can't do that. So everybody know. I'm trying to give y'all the facts as best as I can. I'm trying to get it to y'all. I was filming inside the courthouse today. They said you can't do that. I got in troubles. I did not know, by the way, just so we can be clear. So I wasn't trying to be a I wasn't trying to be I wasn't trying to break any rules. I was trying to skate the line though. I do that. All right. I'm gonna repeat that one more time, and we're gonna go to the next thing. Esquire said Troy Ave got bit on the wrist. Why would someone bite someone on the wrist? To get them to drop something, implying that actually the person who had the gun was Troy Ave and not TAXSTONE. Troy Ave was not being honest when he said he got shot. He changed his story. He said when Tax allegedly fired on him, he doesn't shoot him in the head to kill him. He shoots him in the leg. So he's implying Troy Ave allegedly was trying to, TAXSTONE was allegedly trying to kill Troy Ave. Why would he shoot him in the leg trying to kill him and not shoot him in the head? He goes on to then say they jump up and take the gun after he gets shot in the leg. Then he jumps up and he just takes the gun. He said that story is ridiculous. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to laugh. R.I.P. Banger. I'm really not trying to laugh. So, just so we could be clear, what Esquire says is that Troy Ave isn't being honest about when he got shot. When he got shot. He said he changed his story, which he has changed his story multiple times, but that's neither here nor there. You could remember something incorrectly and not be lying, just so we could be clear. So I'm not implying any lie or anything like that on my side. Give me 1 second. So he says when Tax allegedly fired on him, he doesn't shoot him in the head to kill him. He shoots him in the leg. And then he says, then he jumps up, Troy Ave, after getting shot in the leg, he jumps up, and then he didn't do that sound. If he would have, everybody would have just probably lost it. But he jumps up, and then he takes the gun. So, just so we can be clear, TAXSTONE is not shot. Troy Ave is shot. And after being shot in both of his legs, Troy Ave jumps up and takes the gun away from an unshot TAXSTONE. He said that story's ridiculous. He says in the civil case that Troy Ave has, I believe the civil case he's talking about that Troy Ave has against Urban Plaza, in that one, they're saying that he got shot with 2 bullets. And here he's saying that he got shot with 1. How can he disarm anyone after being shot while the other person isn't and the lights is going out? The lights is going. The lights, it got dark. So apparently Troy Ave jumped up after being shot, and the lights also go out, and then he takes the gun away from a person who ain't been shot. He goes on to say, now everything that I'm saying here, he said in court, I'm not trying to bring up other parties, but this is how I have to report it. 1 second. So just so we can be clear, this is just how I have to report it. This is what was said in court by Esquire. So Esquire goes on to say, Casanova said no one was helping Tax. Why would somebody need to help? Why would anyone need to help somebody with a gun? I'm going to go say this again. Esquire says that Casanova said, and we all heard this, no one was helping Tax. Why would anyone need to help someone with a gun? If you are enjoying if you are appreciating or enjoying any of our content, you can always pull up to the Cash App. Shout out to King Far Rock with the $10 drop. He said, thanks for the great work. Thank you, my brother. Everybody that supports this platform helps keep us going. We're out here. We're trying to do as good as we can, and we're trying to do God's work all at the same time. God's work first, though, obviously. So I'm going to say this one more time. R.I.P. Banger. I'm going to say this one more time. Esquire said, Casanova says, no one was trying to help Tax. Why would anyone need to help somebody who has a gun? Esquire said, Casanova say it was a shootout. How can you have a shootout with just one gun? Esquire said that Casanova said, and we all heard the video with Casanova, the audio where Casanova said this, by the way. So Esquire said, also, could y'all hit that like button, please? Can you hit that like button, please? We got 278 people in here. Let's see if we get to 110 likes. Casanova said that it was a shootout. How can you have a shootout with just one gun? Esquire said Tax lost his phone. How do you lose your phone? You lose your phone when you're getting your ass beat. Esquire said Tax lost his phone. And then he says, how do you lose your phone? You lose your phone when you're getting your ass beat. Esquire didn't say any of that, Bruce Banner. Don't come in here lying. Let's not do that. I'm going to erase this comment. I'm going to erase this comment. Let's not do that. I know that the other dude is saying some weirdo shit. I get it, but we're not going to do that. All right? Why y'all outing him for? He in here every day. Leave that man alone. Esquire said, Tax lost his phone. How do you lose your phone? You lose your phone when you're getting your ass beat. Then Esquire said, Malcolm says that he was beat up, but he didn't tell him about the events of the night. I am going to say this, and this is just something that I want to say real quick. Niggas don't be telling people when they get beat up. And you need to go get another account. Niggas don't be telling people when they get beat up. I just want to just say that right there. Niggas really don't be telling people. And when people get beat up, they don't be telling people. Nobody comes around you to be like, yo, I got fucked up, homie. Nobody does that. Like, nobody does that. I just wanted to say that real quick. I'm not trying to add anything to this. I just that just into my mind. I'm just saying nobody does that. So anyway, any regard. Malcolm says that he looked beat up, but he didn't tell him about the events of the night. We got almost 300 people in here. Can we get those likes up to like 150? Esquire then said, you get to consider this on the evidence or the lack thereof. Esquire goes on to say, Malcolm only knows about the events from what was told to him and from what he saw on social media. So basically, just so we could be clear, they had a witness that they called to the stand as a cooperating witness, and all they know is what other people told them. They wasn't there. They didn't see anything. They have no first-hand information. I'm going to say that again. Esquire said, Malcolm only knows about the events from what was told to him and what was on social media. So he has zero first-hand information of what happened. Zero. Witnesses, Esquire went on to say, witnesses were not the best people to speak to, and all of the testimony was speculatory, meaning that, first of all, the witnesses that they had to come on, they weren't even the people who did the forensic work. They had all secondary people doing the forensic work. I mean, they had all secondary people that came to the stand. They didn't have the actual people that did the autopsy. They didn't have the actual people that was doing the forensic work. Those people are on vacation and don't work there at the company no more. They like all types of stuff. I'm not trying to laugh about this. R.I.P. Banger, but also R.I.P. Hovain. But they're not. They didn't have the actual people that was in the laboratory doing the actual work. So that means that those people they weren't able to question those individuals. They weren't able to pay. They wasn't able to cross-examine those individuals in court. The only people they was able to cross-examine was people that were reading the paperwork of what happened. They weren't able to. It's like they weren't able to ask Michael Jordan how it felt to play the New York Knicks in the 1993 playoffs. They was just able to talk to people who read the stat card. That's it. They had people that came on the stand and read the shot sheet. They didn't have the actual Michael Jordan up there talking about when he took off from this side and then did the layup and landed on that side. They didn't have him. What they had was they had some people that could read the shot sheet and say, well, at that point, Michael Jordan had 24 points. So that's basically what Esquire was saying. All of the testimony was basically speculatory. I'm saying this is what Esquire said. He also said the reason why the prosecution added those other charges is because they did not think that they could get a conviction. So they had to add the extra charges because they don't think they're going to get a conviction on the initial charges in which they charged them for. Esquire went on to say, what you have been presented with what they've been trying to say is that TAXSTONE had the intent to do something, but there is no intent. There was no intent for TAXSTONE to do any of these things. And that's why they had to add all that manslaughter and all those new charges, because they know, or they feel like, the prosecution feels like they're not going to get a conviction unless they also, they're not going to get a conviction if they have to prove intent, because the prosecution don't even feel like they proved intent. That's what he basically said. Esquire went on to say, TAXSTONE bringing the gun is not proof that he fired the gun. It's only proof that he brought the gun with him. It's not proof that he shot anybody. My dude, that's like, I guess he's like saying, like, just because you got a condom in your wallet, that don't mean you're going to get laid. I'm not even sure the defense has the ability to subpoena people like that. I think people gotta come in because Wild Wills. Shit. I'm just assuming who that is, so I don't want to read that. Anyway, shout out to Esquire. No, I said the condom remark, by the way. that was all Jack. The condom remark was all Jack's. But basically, that's what Esquire said, that TAXSTONE bringing the gun is not proof that he fired the gun. And then I use the analogy that just because you got a condom in your wallet, that don't mean you're going to get laid. Also, don't keep condoms in your wallet. That's like one of the worst places. Also, they pointed out that you never even heard from Maggie Hextall. That was homegirl that got shot in the leg. Like, so she got shot in the leg, but y'all didn't call her to the stand. Y'all couldn't get her to come to the stand. She's literally one of the people that got shot. Esquire goes on to say, why not the unknown persons? Hold on. As far as the persons who fired the gun, why not the unknown persons, and why not Troy Ave? What evidence do they actually have that says that TAXSTONE fired the gun? Esquire is saying they only have evidence that TAXSTONE brought the gun in the building. They don't have any evidence that TAXSTONE fired the gun. The only person that they have saying that TAXSTONE fired the gun is Troy Ave. And basically, I'm just going to stick to what they're saying. The only evidence they have is TAXSTONE firing the gun. Esquire goes on to say they was jumping tax and falling all over each other. You know how it looks when somebody is jumping niggas? When you got one dude, I'm going to say this real quick. When you got one guy, and a lot of us probably been in this situation, when you got one guy and you got a whole bunch of people trying to jump you, but they hitting each other, you know what I'm saying? They falling all over each other. It's a total fracas because, you know, that's basically what he said happened. He says they would jump in tax. This is what Esquire says. They would jump in tax and falling all over each other. And then they went for the gun and someone pulled the trigger. That is criminally negligent homicide, not murder with intent. Then he goes on to say, basically, that's why they changed the charge. I'm sorry, I have to comment to this. Lovely E, what's hearsay? Your comment makes 0 sense. Your comment makes 0 sense. How could you have hearsay on a closing statement? The closing arguments, the closing statements. How could they be hearsay? It's the closing statements. What the heck, fam? Shout out to Lovely E. In any regard. I want to know what you thought hearsay was, by the way. I'm curious as to what you thought the hearsay was. This is the closing statements. It's the closing statements. I hope nothing was objected and I didn't realize it was objected, but I don't think I said I missed anything. Anyway, then he goes on to say that this culture, Esquire, goes on to say this culture's ignorance overshadows the beauty. And that's like one of the realest things I've heard somebody say in so long. I ain't gonna lie to you. The ignorance of our culture absolutely 100% overshadows the beauty. That's one of the realest things I heard anybody say about our culture. Our culture is so beautiful, but we can't even see how beautiful it is. Because people are out here too busy hating on each other, trying to destroy each other, killing each other. And it's bananas. Like, I don't want to hear people talk about what the white man is doing to us. Never again. Never. Because why everybody keep talking about what this race of people is doing to us and that race of people is doing to us, but it's okay for us to do those same things and worse to each other? I don't believe it is. When I hear somebody talking negative about my brother, whoever my brother might be, I don't entertain the shit. I either get up out the comments, get up out of that conversation, or I defend. But I'm going to do one of the two. I'm not going to stand there and entertain that. We're not doing that. When is people going to start doing that? When is people going to stop entertaining the foolishness that people are saying about your brothers and your sisters? When? People hate Karens. I don't hate Karens. You want to know why? Because a lot of times Karens, you got the Karens that is all screwed up, right? But you also got the Karens that are really thinking that they're doing the right thing. They really do think that they're doing the right thing, and they are trying to be helpful. We need more people in our community trying to do the right thing and trying to be helpful. You know what we do too much of? And this is just my opinion. I'm going to get back to what we're talking about. And this is just my opinion. Somebody will come and say something negative about somebody, and then you're going to go help them try to destroy that person without even knowing if that thing that they're accusing that person of is real. You won't even know if the thing that they're accusing that person of is real. They won't even know. But they'll help them destroy that other person. They'll help them spread rumors. All types of bullshit. They'll help them. They won't even know if the shit is real or not. So yeah, our culture has way more ignorance. The ignorance definitely overshadows the beauty, because we got a beautiful culture with beautiful people. Then he ends it by saying, Esquire ends it by saying, the presumption of innocence matters. If there is evidence that is not credible, you can have all the evidence in the world, but if it's not credible, then he closed his he ended his closing statement right there. Before I tell you the prosecution's closing statement, do y'all want to say anything? Is there anything that y'all want to say before y'all hear me say what the prosecution has to respond back to? Put it in the chat. I think this would be a good time for us to go. And what did you think about that closing statement, by the way? In the chat, what did you think about the closing statement? You could do it with Frost. You know what I'm saying? 1 to 5 Frost. If you got a half a Frost, you could just put like 4 and then put the 1 with the slash in the 2. What did you think about that closing statement? Did you think it was good? Did you think that he missed some points? Did you think that he say some things that you probably didn't think of yourself? And just so we could be clear, when he was in court, he absolutely 100% gave the appropriate energy. Oh, that's what you mean by hearsay. Copy, lovely E. I didn't understand what you were saying was hearsay. I think you behind us, by the way. So, I think you were behind us. So that's what you mean. Yes, a lot of the things is secondhand information. That's what he said. That's what Esquire was pointing out. That Malcolm's information was all secondhand information. For the most part. We got 305 people in here. If we hit that like button, we got to be able to get to 150. That got to be a possibility. Also, if you are enjoying this show at all and you would like to support the platform, you can always pull up to the Cash App. Air says his closing filled in the holes in the story to you. Shout out to Air. I'm going to read some of your comments. Lovely E said, weak case. Said exactly. Ayrton said that was a good closing. Says, do you think the jury will focus on how the gun got in? I'm not answering any questions as that. I'm not prognosticating. I'm not assuming anything. Sharice said it was great. Bruce Banner said 3 out of 5. Bruce Banner's the guy that I said is Troy Ave. He said that was 3 out of 5 for a closing. Yeah, I said that was Troy. Yeah, Bruce Banner, right? Lovely E says the witness didn't see anything personally, but got information about the case from other sources. Ayrton said his closing filled in the holes for me. Sharice says, what was Tax demeanor today? Tax, as always, he's been looking very strong, in a confident way, not overconfident, but looking very strong. I don't know if that's a 12 out of 5, or are you saying that's a 12 out of 5? You liked it that much? Anyway, um, he's looking confident. He's looking strong. He's looking strong as usual. Every day Tax has been in court. He's been looking strong. He hasn't been looking weak at all. You know, if for everybody that remembers TAXSTONE being an outwardly strong person, very confident person, very projecting strength, he's been that way every day in court, as far as I can tell. And he hasn't in any way looked like he thinks that he's not going to be exonerated. He looked in every way, like all of his energy looks like he believes he's going to be exonerated. Brooklyn Don said Esquire wins this case all the time, wins these cases all the time. Alex Price says, I think that's 12 out of 5, no cap. Only thing he didn't directly mention was that Troy admitted touching the trigger in the fight. June Sony, I'm just gonna call you Sony, said great closing statement. He poked several holes in the prosecutor's argument. For example, biting the wrist, leg shot, Tax only DNA on the floor. It makes you think. Lovely E says, yes, stop tearing each other down. Yes, stop tearing each other down. LaRon says free Tax. Business says Esquire, a legend in my book. Miss M says, Troy Ave said Tax and Bengo was tussling. Then he heard a shot and seen a spark between them. How can Tax shoot if he was wrestling and tussling? No idea. Alex, Eris is, Bruce Banner says it's clear he was trying to create reasonable doubt. He played it safe throughout. Lovely E says the internet stuff has let things get into people's head. I just want to comment on that real quick before we move over to the prosecutions. This is just my opinion. I could be wrong. This is just my opinion. But what it is people are too entertained by the bullshit. Stop allowing yourself to be the change you want to see in the world. Stop allowing yourself to be entertained by the BS. Also, shout out to New Line Entertainment. Shout out to Philly. Salute. Shout out to New Line Entertainment. They've been pulling up to support Tax. They pulled up in there in court today, very supportive of TAXSTONE. Shout out to New Line Entertainment. They pulled up in court today, very supportive of TAXSTONE. New Line Entertainment. Shout out to New Line Entertainment. Those guys are incredible. Shout out to Philly. Philly is incredible. I love Philly. I already know what it is. New Line Entertainment. They did not make Freddy Krueger. Also, New Line in Cinema. New Line Cinema only exists because Freddy Krueger was a success. If Nightmare on Elm Street would not have been a success, New Line Cinema would have been. Yeah, I don't need to know about all that. Anyway, I should do movie videos also, by the way. Just so y'all could. I should do movie videos. Anyway, Lovely E said the internet stuff getting to people's heads. Yeah, stop supporting negative shit. Stop supporting hate. That's all I could say. Stop supporting the hate, man. Like, start supporting people that's out here trying to do positive things more. Like, that's just good for your soul, homie. Anyway, Lovely E says, Talk says, if he beats the case, you know how big Tax gonna be. Wow. Lovely E says, so let's push each other up and stop tearing each other down. I agree. I've been trying to push people up for the longest. Sometimes I do have snarky comments at people's comments in the chat, but for the most part, I don't speak on anything unless I'm trying to big it up and speak positively about it. Reach says, how did the prosecutor confirm that it was Casanova in the wiretap? You mean, how did we all hear Casanova's voice? Is that what you asking? I'm not reading your comments no more, by the way. I'm gonna go get my water. I'm gonna. I want everybody to go up and read Reach NYC's comment. Just go read Reach NYC's comment. Just read it. I'm gonna go get warm up my coffee. Sheesh. Like we all didn't hear Casanova's voice. Like we all didn't hear his voice. Oh man. Like we all didn't hear his voice. Like we all didn't just hear his voice. Now you see why I be trying not to say nothing about these guys' comments, man. But look what they saying, fam. Look what they saying. So please stop telling me that I be too hard on people in the chat. I don't want to hear that. I do not want to hear that I be too hard on people in the chat. I don't want to hear that. You see what kind of comments? How did you know that was TAXSTONE voice? Like we didn't, Casanova's voice. Like we didn't actually hear it. Sheesh, fam. All right, I'm going to read a couple more, then we're going to get to the prosecution side. I just want to give y'all an opportunity to comment before you hear what the prosecution has to say. That's why I just didn't do it back to back. Wanted to hear the rest about New Line Cinema next time. Next time. New Line Cinema didn't exist. It's a long story. Anyway, it's a long story, but I could sit here for hours and tell you about cinema shit and comic book shit and television shit. Roadrunner says, tax not beating nothing. Hold on, stop. So you don't think that with the wired, TAXSTONE used his own phone to call Malcolm? So you don't think that the government can't ascertain who phone called Malcolm when they have Malcolm's phone tapped? So somebody stole TAXSTONE's phone who happened to have the same type of voice like TAXSTONE. Come on, fam. I'm not reading this guy's comments no more. Whoever think I should put that guy on the timeout, drop some. Who think I should put him on the timeout? I just want to know. If you think I should put that dude on the timeout, please put it in the chat. Roadrunner says tax not being nothing. The insured that by entering more charges, she made it impossible for him to escape without nothing. Champ Stone said, thanks for being unbiased. That's what we about over here. Every single thing we cover, we're trying to be unbiased, period. Marcus says, heard him and seen him on camera saying it. Man, you just, these guys is crazy, man. I don't know what to tell you. These guys is crazy, fam. I don't know what to tell you. No Strays Entertainment said, to be fair, I think homies mean, did Casanova cooperate and confirm that was his voice? Or was he just saying? Yep, you're about to be timed out too. I'm not reading no more of your comments either. Air says, shout out to Kitten. I'm not reading no more of that guy's comments either. What the fuck, fam? So we got one for timing out. We got Pop said don't time out. Another one for timing out. We're not gonna kick him. It's just timing out. Even without the wire, Malcolm would have told anyway. Yes, Malcolm said it was Casanova. I don't got time for this. Anyway, what up, Jesus the philosopher? I think he deserves a timeout, and I think the other guy should get a timeout for even agreeing with him. Antonio Brown says he probably a king that because people were saying Casanova had to cooperate to confirm his fraud. I'm not going with that. See, I'm not here to say anybody cooperated except for the people who we know cooperated because the prosecution said it. Other than that, don't ask me if anybody cooperated. Because what you're trying to get me to do is say something so you could go make a video and say that I said something, some weirdo shit, and I accuse somebody of something. I know what you're trying to do. That's why I said, should we time this person out? I know what he's trying to do. They're trying to get a soundbite of me saying something so they could go make fake videos. I know what they're trying to do. When you hear me say, should I time somebody out? Those are usually the reasons. My dude, I'm in here just be giving facts. And all the people want me to do is assume. It's bananas. That's a fact, lovely E. I'm not trying to react negatively. You are correct. I'm woosah. Fitzgerald says, Jex, if you feels like that, goes with what you feels. My dude, I want to say this before we go any further. Yeah, I do understand that these people try to get me to say opinion, or they try to trick the words all the time to try to get me to say something that I'm not saying. So they could go make sound bites and then say I'm doing something I'm not doing. So what the hell, fam? Yep, Bamboo's getting kicked. How you go, Bamboo? Marcus Williams says, Jack just been giving nothing but positive vibes from day one. It's just been the devil testing you, and you haven't folded yet. We're going to stay with the positive vibes, my brother. And if anybody is enjoying the show, you can always pull up to the Cash App or the PayPal. And you can hit the like button. We got 332 people in here. We can get to 170 likes. 799 says, TAXSTONE pled guilty to the handgun. If he beats the case, he just has to worry about the sentencing for felony possession of a handgun. Alex Price says, do you think Troy had to give up more info on his coke sales? Like Malcolm, I'm not getting into whatever. I'm not getting into that. Malcolm gave up his connects, by the way. So that what Malcolm had to give up his connects. So yeah, Malcolm got a whole bunch of people allegedly arrested. Anyway, Brooklyn Don says, good work, Jack. Definitely appreciate you. Salute. David says, don't let anybody trick you off your square. Report the facts, and only that. It's the only way to stay solid. Yeah, no, I'm just reporting the facts. That's it. We just reporting the facts. All right, let's move on to the prosecuting. And I'm saying that understanding that even when I'm reporting the facts, when I'm saying stuff that people don't agree with, they consider me to be lying. But I'm not lying. I'm just telling you what happened in court. I can't help it if somebody says something in court that you believe or you know or you believe to be different than the truth. I have no control over that. I only have control over I have no control over that. I'm just reporting on what they're reporting in court, period. Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back. Give me 2 seconds. Hit that like button. Business says if Tax gets off, Troy's gonna make a diss off to the jury. 100% believe that. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I 100% believe that if TAXSTONE gets off, Troy Ave is absolutely making a diss track to the jury. I believe that wholeheartedly. He's gonna be calling them out by the way they look and everything. I 100% believe that. That's a fact. Oh man, bananas. Oh man, niggas bananas. Oh man. Oh man. Yo, I know y'all don't like Troy Ave. I don't feel no way about him one way or the other. I don't dislike the guy. But he's funny as shit. I don't know what the fuck, yo. This dude. I know y'all don't like him. And tons of people got good reason to not like him. I guess. I'm not I don't have no dog in that fight. I'm just saying, dude is funny as shit. I believe he'd do some stupid shit like that. I'm sorry. Yes, Esquire. I wish I had bombs to be dropping. Oh man, trials a myth. I can't do with this with y'all. Shout out to the chat. Y'all killing it tonight. Hit that damn like button though, you rat bastards. Let's get to the prosecution. Whew, I'm pretty sure y'all want to hear what the prosecution has to say. Hit that like button. We can get up to 170 something tonight. We get up to 175. Hit that like button. Y'all killing it tonight, by the way. I love you guys. Y'all killing it. How you gonna tell us? How you gonna tell anybody what the jury want to know? How do you know what the jury want to know? How do you know what the jury wants to know, homie? How do you know what the jury wants to know? Okay, here goes the closing from the prosecutors. The prosecution's closing. I hope y'all ready. Here goes the prosecution's closing. I hope y'all ready. The first thing I want to do is take my shoes off. Oh, y'all know what outfit I wore today, right? I forgot to show y'all. So I wore this outfit. I know nobody don't care. But I wore this outfit today. I wore this one. I did not wear the orange one I showed y'all last night. I wore this outfit. I don't plan on wearing the orange one tomorrow. It's gonna be super warm, so I might not wear a sweater tomorrow. I might wear a jacket and one of my shirts. It's gonna be lit. I'm gonna take my shoes off. Oh, and I rock these shoes today. Boom. Look at M Mills trying to get me to go repeat stuff and get off of our square. Look at M Mills trying to get us to go backwards and start talking about stuff we're not talking about. Shout out to M Mills. Anyway, So the prosecution closing starts like this. The prosecution says, Darth Keenan, DK, says, it took the defendant 5 seconds to pull the gun and shoot. Darth Keenan says, a 33-year-old man, Banger, she called him by his real name, obviously, Ronald McFadden. Ronald McFadden. 33-year-old man, Ronald McFadden, was killed. R.I.P. Banger. Darth Keenan, DK, says, Tax had a 5-year obsession with Troy Ave. Darth Keenan says it was a senseless act of violence. Darth Keenan said, the evidence proves he brought the loaded gun into Irving Plaza. Darth Keenan, DK, says the defendant punched, then the defendant got punched and then fired the gun. Darth Keenan says, DK, the defendant fired 5 shots and there's 3 victims and made 3 victims. I think she meant 4 victims because one isn't here no more. Darth Keenan says, DK, you should find Malcolm and Troy Ave's testimony credible. She then shows the paperwork for their federal agreement. Darth Keenan says, DK, says that Troy, the federal agreement, just so we can be clear, the federal agreement where TAXSTONE had to, because he pled on the gun. So she showed that. Where he admitted that he secured the gun out of state and then brought it in the state. And Darth Keenan, DK, says he possessed it in Manhattan May 25th, 2016. Darth Keenan goes on to say, DK, the defendant says it that it's his gun. DK goes on to say 4 bullets were recovered from the gun, from the use of the gun. DK goes on to say one of the bullets was from Banger's pelvis. The other one was from Troy Ave's leg. There was another one in the railing. Now, there was another bullet, just so we could be clear, that was inconclusive. Whether it came from Tax gun or not, that bullet had hit some kind of like metal ivory thing, and it got disfigured. So it was inconclusive. DK goes on to say, Darth Keenan, 0 evidence that there was a second gun. Only the defendant's gun. DK, Darth Keenan goes on to say, the video shows Tax slide by the security with the gun while his friends talk to the security. So basically, what she's alluding to is, yo, go distract that guy over there, and while he's looking over there, I'm going to walk past him on this side. DK, Darth Keenan, goes on to say Malcolm, Jazzy, Star couldn't have brought the gun in because they left before the shooting happened. DK, Dolph Keenan, goes on to say, Cass left the room after the first shot. There was 3 shots in 6 seconds. Dolph Keenan goes on to say, DK, Cass said Tax had the gun. Casanova is Tax's friend. Dolph Keenan, DK, the prosecution, goes on to say, within 10 minutes of the shooting, Casanova called Malcolm and says, Tax bust a shot in the small room. Casanova did not know that the phone, Malcolm's phone, was tapped. And the way in which he spoke proves that Casanova's comments are reliable. He wasn't trying to create evidence. He was really just calling his homeboy, saying, yo, look, this nigga just shot the other dude. She didn't say that. She didn't call nobody the N-word. That's what I'm trying to say. DK, Dolph Keenan, goes on to say, Cass said no one helped the defendant. DK, Dolph Keenan, goes on to say, Cass goes back in the room after the shots to get Tax. Tries to help Tax retain possession of the gun towards the end of the wrestling. DK goes on to say, Tax's phone call credible evidence. The scientific evidence is evidence of Tax guilt. DK goes on to say, an innocent person doesn't try to get people to lie to the jury. Basically doesn't pay people to lie to the jury. That's the actions of a shooter. Dolph Keenan, DK, goes on to say, a person is not truthful when what happens proves their guilt. Basically saying, why would you expect a person that when the truth implies guilt to them, why would you expect for them to tell the truth? Dolph Keenan goes on to say, DK, TAXSTONE conspired with Brittany Lewis, who I do not know who Brittany Lewis is. I just want to be clear on this. To pay Oscar to be a witness and to say specific things. She then plays the audios. If y'all don't mind, I'm going to go get my marker real quick. Darth Keenan goes on to say that Oscar was offered sexual favors for testimony. Apparently from Brittany Lewis. Also said, Darth Keenan, DK, also said that they can contact Miss Ibrahim on Snapchat. DK, Darth Keenan, goes on to say that they do not have proof of any communications between Brittany and Miss Ibrahim. Let me get that lady's first name. Jatira. Darth Keenan goes on to say, Oscar, that they said that Troy Ave, TAXSTONE, because they played the audio, said that he doesn't need to tell on anybody. Just so we can be clear, the audios were played. The first was Brittany conspiring to pay Oscar with TAXSTONE to say specific things. The second audio was Oscar, TAXSTONE saying to offer Oscar sexual favors for testimony. The third thing that she played was TAXSTONE saying that he has Miss Ibrahim's Snapchat. And then she added that they don't actually have proof of the communications between Brittany and Miss Ibrahim. And then the fourth audio she played was the one where he was saying that Oscar doesn't need to tell on anybody. He just has to say that TAXSTONE's hands were busy, so he could not have fired the gun, and say that the shots went off behind him. They played another audio where Brittany says Oscar will say whatever you need him to say. Then DK, Darth Keenan, goes on to say, the defendant didn't expect that the audio would ever be recovered because the app that they used, Telegram, is an encrypted app. So they never thought that any of these communications were going to be recovered. Then they played another audio where TAXSTONE is saying that basically they need to try to delay the trial so that Malcolm could get done with whatever he has to get done with, because then he wouldn't have so much of a need to want to snitch on him. Or, say whatever, not snitch, but he wouldn't have a need to go hard on him. That's literally what he said. I got to say no homo now because, I'm a New Yorker. But that's what he said. Then Darth Keenan, DK, said, it's clear Oscar is lying. And he's not lying for money. He's lying because he wants to make it in the rap world. He's X amount of years old, and he's been trying to make it in the rap game for a lot of years. DK goes on to say then, Oscar had to change his story so that it'll connect with Miss Ibrahim's Jatira's story. DK then goes on to say, Darth Keenan, that the door where Miss Ibrahim Jatira says that her foot was caught under is nowhere near the refrigerator she said she was sitting on. So I am going to draw a sketch real quick, if y'all don't mind, because there was a photo that I obviously don't have a picture of. So give me 1 second. So this is the door. Room. I'll do a marker. What am I doing with a pen for? Let's use this. So this is the door, the room, refrigerator, so allegedly she was at this door, is the door that swung open and got caught under her foot. I mean, pardon me, allegedly this is the refrigerator she was sitting on, because this is where the refrigerator was in the photo. And this is the door that swung open and allegedly her foot was caught under. Darth Keenan, DK, then showed the photo on the monitor. If there's anybody in here that was in the room, that was in court today, if I'm saying anything incorrect, please put it in the chat. Darth Keenan goes on to say that Miss Ibrahim was trying to make Tax a victim rather than the shooter. I have no idea how to spell her name. I just wrote any old thing. I just wrote it so I know how to say it. Miss Ibrahim's video, Darth Keenan goes on to say, Miss Ibrahim's video, and there's a video of TAXSTONE pouring her a drink earlier in the night. She says that Miss Ibrahim's video only proves that he was wearing a black shirt. Because after all of this happened, there was no bottle of Douce on the ground. The point being is the door is all the way on the other side of the room of the refrigerator. If she was sitting on the refrigerator, they could swing the door open 1,000,000 times and her foot would never get caught under it because she's on the other side of the room. That was the inference that was made. DK goes on to say, Darth Keenan, an innocent man doesn't need anyone to lie. Only a guilty man does. Darth Keenan goes on to say the cooperator's testimony is reliable. Darth Keenan goes on to say the prosecutor does not tell cooperators to lie. Darth Keenan, DK, goes on to say Malcolm told on himself so hard that they added 5 charges. So if you're trying to say that Malcolm is just snitching in order to get out of trouble, she said Malcolm told on himself so hard that the U.S. Attorney's Office added 5 charges. Goes on to say Malcolm testified in this case because of an agreement, and he was vetted for 8 months. So I want to say something real quick so y'all can understand what she means by vetted for 8 months. So for 8 months, he had to tell the truth in ways that got people locked up. I'm going to say this again. For 8 months, somebody said that's a tough line to say in court. What are you talking about? So for 8 months, meaning he was vetted for 8 months. That means for 8 months, Malcolm had to give them information that they was actually able to operate off and make things happen. So he had to, for 8 months, snitch on niggas. So at this point, we don't believe the prosecution's office, he has no reason to lie, is what they're saying. For 8 months, he had been telling the truth during the vetting process. For 8 months, he was giving us intel, getting people locked up. For 8 months, he was a cooperating snitch. And he told us things that he told them things that they were then information that they were then able to act off of to most likely get arrests and work towards convictions. I did not have a chance to do the outlining earlier, just so we could be clear. DK then goes on to say that Malcolm is facing a minimum of 42 years and a maximum of life in prison. So basically, why would he lie here and mess up his opportunity to be able to get a 5K1 letter? That's what she's saying. Darth Keenan, the Sith Lord, then goes on to say he has to be truthful when he testifies whenever asked. If he gives false or incomplete testimony, he will not be able to get the 5K letter. DK then goes on to say, only way to get a letter is to be truthful. He told on his suppliers, and he told on other crimes besides Irving Plaza. DK then goes on to say, Malcolm observed injuries on TAXSTONE, and the tax call corroborates Troy Ave's story. DK goes on to say, the question isn't whether you like Troy Ave or not. It's whether you believe him or not. DK goes on to say, the defendant, not the people of New York City, made Troy Ave a victim of murder. Meaning, not the DA's office. They didn't make him a victim. It wasn't the DA's office. It was the defendant, is what they're saying, that made Troy Ave a victim. Not a victim of murder, obviously. That made Troy Ave a victim. It was not the people's office. It was not the people. It wasn't the DA's office. It was the defendant. DK goes on to say, the defendant bullied Troy Ave for years. And then he shot and murdered his friend. And just so we can be clear, the trolling, or whatever y'all want to call it, harassment, trolling, it started in 2012 and it ended in 2016. There were 714 acts and mentions over that period of time. And just in the year of 2016, from from January 1st to May 25th, the day of the incident, I believe there was 149 tweets and mentions between that period of time. While Troy Ave only tweeted and mentioned them the totality of the time, I think 53 times or 58 times on Twitter and Instagram. And through that period of time between January 1st and May 25th, he only added and or mentioned him 7 times. She said, when Troy Ave was on the stand during his testimony, the defense didn't even allow Troy Ave to answer questions. The defense asked Troy Ave questions. I gotta say something here. The defense would ask Troy Ave questions, and before Troy Ave had the opportunity to answer the questions, the defense would cut him off and or turn on videos or whatever. Now I want to say something real quick. I'm just trying to tell y'all what happened in the court. I tried very, very little to say anything specifically, but we spoke on this before, and I want to say something. These two dudes was in court acting a fool. What they was doing in court was incredible television. I promise you. It was incredible television. These dudes, when I tell you, and I just want to say this. When I tell you, these dudes was just, I told you, I don't even know if there was questions being asked. I'm not even going to lie to you. So they was just, if anybody was in court that day, am I lying? They was just going at it. The judge had to stop them. The stenographer had to stop them because they was talking over each other. it was bananas. I don't know what to tell you. I just wanted to say that right there. It was bananas. I don't know what to tell you. So she's not lying and she's not wrong, but she's also not black, for a better sense of the term. So since she's not black, I think that, and I just want to say this. I think that this has to, because none of us are jurists, right? So I can say this, and this is still me being unbiased and just truthful. But I think it had to do more with she's not in the culture, so she don't know how. She don't understand. You understand what I'm saying? I think it was more that than anything else. I don't think she's trying to this is a good point, and it's. I think she should have said this if she's the prosecution. By the way, I'm not saying she shouldn't have said this. She's the prosecution. I think that this is something that she should have said, but I think it just had more to do with she don't understand, because this is a cultural thing what they was going through in the middle of court. It was really a cultural thing. It was, if you miscaught that day, you miscaught that day, homie. First of all, R.I.P. Banger. And TAXSTONE is in there fighting for his freedom. R.I.P. Banger. But if you miscaught that day, you miscaught that day. I don't know what to tell you. I'm just saying what it was. It was a cultural thing. I don't even know. Troy Ave was answering questions that wasn't even asked. It was bananas. He was asking questions, and then he wasn't asking questions. Troy Ave was asking questions. You had to be there. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to explain. Like, you really had to be there. Like, these dudes was just going at it. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. These dudes was just going at it. Like, you really just had to be there. I don't know no other way to say it. Like, for real. Like, Troy Ave was asking questions. This is real talk. I'm not capping. Like, you just had to be there. I don't know what to tell you. It was crazy. I'm going to work at my own pace. Copy? I'm not concerned with what anybody else is doing. The blessed should never be concerned with what the miserable do. Copy? The blessed should never be concerned with what the miserable is doing, homie. I appreciate you not coming in here telling me what other people are doing also. All right? And I just want to say something. People are always saying for me to speed it up or whatever the case is. And I'm not getting at New York urban legend. I'm just saying people are always saying to speed it up or whatever, right? But there's a reason why my content is different from everybody else's content. You understand what I'm saying? There's a reason why my content is different. My content is different because I do take my time. You understand? That's why it's different. They got to wait for me to talk before they could do anything. They can't steal anything until I do it first. I'm not concerned. Reach is probably the dude stealing the shit. talking about, nah, this shit is dope. He probably wanted to do it anyway. I don't care. In any regard, Darth Keenan, DK, goes on to say they would interrupt each other often. They would. I don't know. They. She said they, just so we could be clear. He said, I'm not even a blogger. They would they would interrupt each other often. They was just having a conversation up there. It was just, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. In any regard, she didn't mention, Darth Keenan then went on to mention that their acts and mentions of Troy Ave was over 700 times. Then goes on to say the defense tried to mislead into thinking that they didn't want to get locked in. Oh, Troy Ave, the defense tried to mislead you when Troy Ave said that he didn't want to get locked in. Because Troy Ave wasn't saying, as far as Darth Keenan DK is concerned, wasn't saying, I'm saying Darth Keenan, by the way, like Darth Vader, just so you can understand. She's a Sith Lord over here. Just so y'all can understand what I'm saying. So DK is saying that Esquire was trying to mislead, right? You into thinking that Troy Ave was being dishonest when he said he didn't want to get locked in. What Troy Ave was saying when he was saying he didn't want to get locked in is that he didn't know how many times, how many shots rang out. So when they was asking him how many shots rang out, he was saying, I don't want to get locked in by telling you a number. And then there was really a different number. And then you're going to say, I lied about something. So that's what he was trying to say he did not want to get locked in regarding. She said that that Esquire tried to mislead you into thinking, you know, that he didn't want to get locked into something else. Yes, they showed it quite a few times. The only relevance to the gun, Troy Ave, the only relevance to the two guns that Troy Ave got caught with is that he didn't bring any of his guns into the venue. DK goes on to say that the ballistics evidence proves that Troy Ave's guns never came into the club because all of the ballistic evidence they're saying has to deal with the gun that TAXSTONE brought into the club. Says Troy Ave didn't bring his gun into the club. He was actually wrestling over the one gun that TAXSTONE brought into the club. Says that when Troy Ave, DK that says when Troy Ave demonstrated in the front of the jury, he was reliving the moment, which proves he was being truthful. Also, I want to say something. I couldn't see when he was demonstrating in front of the jury, but apparently he was walking all over Esquire's jacket because Esquire laid his jacket down so he could demonstrate. Like I told you, Troy Ave was asking Esquire questions. So I'm not lying. Troy Ave was asking Esquire questions. These guys was just having some kind of they was just having a conversation, man. I don't know what to tell you. So he asked them, did he want him to demonstrate? And Esquire said, sure. You have to be there. You had to be there. R.I.P. Banger. You come in here disrespecting him, I'm kicking you. And it's that type of time. Anyway, the ballistics evidence proves that Troy Ave gun never came into the club. Troy Ave didn't bring his gun in the club. They was wrestling over the one gun. DK then went on to say Troy Ave gave a demonstration in front of the jury. He was reliving that moment, which proves that he was being truthful. Troy Ave came to DA because he was being prosecuted. That's why he actually came to the DA, because he was being prosecuted. They did not have an open case for what happened in the green room. So Troy Ave was not being prosecuted for anything that happened in the green room. Troy Ave actually was being prosecuted for the guns that was found in the vehicles, and because he was on camera firing. None of that happened in the green room. So that's what DK wanted to point out, that all of the things that Troy Ave actually was being prosecuted for had nothing to do with anything that happened inside of the green room. It had everything to do with things that happened outside of the green room. Just so we could be clear. DK goes on to say, because of Roland Collins' self-interest is why you could believe him, because of his self-interest. DK goes on to say that he did not rush to Irving Plaza after getting there. They showed basically, they didn't show the video again. And she specifically said, I'm not going to show you the video again. Somebody must have told her, like, yo, look, man, you showed that damn video for 11 whole minutes. You could have sped it up and said it was 11 minutes. We would have believed you. Nobody wanted to sit there for 11 minutes and see a video of some dudes just standing in front of the fucking spot, getting ready to get in the damn vehicle to go drive to the other spot. Nobody wanted to see that. Somebody put on the game. In any regard, DK said they didn't rush to go to Irving Plaza, being as, remember, if they allegedly knew, Troy Avenue allegedly knew that TAXSTONE was at Irving Plaza, and in addition of knowing that he was there, they had ill intent towards him. Why did they take their time to go to Irving Plaza? That was the inference that was being made. Anyway, Benga was 5'9" and muscular. Earlier, I didn't write this down, but not important. So the prosecution wants you to know that Benga was 5'9" and muscular. Said DK says, DK's the prosecution, Darth Keenan, said Troy doesn't say he saw a gun, just says he saw Tax reach towards his waist like he had a gun. Says Troy Ave gave honest testimony. She's calling him Ronald Collins, by the way. She says, DK says, that he sees and hears the muzzle flash at Benga's chest. DK goes on to say, the shot to his chest was contact or near contact. Just so we can be clear, this is contact. When the gun is like this, that's contact, right? And this would be near contact. Anywhere like between this and 3 inches is near contact. So this is contact and this is near contact. So the gun, when it went off, it couldn't be too much further than this from Benga's chest, just so we could be clear. That's what she was saying. She says the shot to the back, because Benga got shot in the back also, was less than 12 inches. She goes on to say, and she plays a video, that there was 4 shots in about 16 seconds. She goes on to say Benga was actually helping Troy Ave between shots 1 and 3. 1, 2, 3. DK goes on to say the bullet path is consistent with someone being bent over like this because it goes in like that. DK goes on to say Tax turns his back and then turns around and fires at Troy Ave, who's on the ground. She then says that during the violent spooning, yes, she decided to say it also. Shout out to DK for that shit. I did not expect DK to say anything about the violent spooning, but she could have just said wrestling, but she said violent spooning. So she must have been, she wanted to say that. In any regard, R.I.P. Banger. I feel bad every time I say something that's a joke because somebody did lose their life here. The bite mark proves Troy's story is true. The violent spooning. We have 177. We could get up to 200 likes, y'all. DK goes on to say Troy Ave gets a little bit more control over the gun and starts to hit TAXSTONE in the head, which explains the blood on the floor and the injuries to TAXSTONE. DK then plays a video and says, the video shows Casanova at the door. The video shows Casanova at the door. It shows him come out of the door, then wait by the door, and then get ready to go in the door. But the thing that DK wanted people to focus on was allegedly, I don't know, this is allegedly, TAXSTONE had told him he got this. So Casanova didn't go all the way in the room initially. Says Cass backs up from the door, which corroborates Troy's story when he says Tax told Cass to back up. Sheesh. I just checked to see how much more I got. Whew. DK says the bullet found in the rail, for everybody that don't know, outside of the room, there was a bullet found in the railing across. I'll show you where. So this is a sketch of I'll use red. I'll use green. So this is a sketch of the location, right? So this right here is where the rooms are at. This is where the rooms are at that they're at, right? This is not scale, obviously. So Troy Ave, these are the two rooms. I'll put X's by the two rooms. So Troy Ave. So Troy Ave comes out of the room and allegedly sees TAXSTONE here. I'm going to use a T for TAXSTONE and an A for Troy Ave. And allegedly sees Troy Ave comes out of the room and allegedly sees TAXSTONE here, and he shoots at him. And there's a railing over here that a bullet was pulled out of. Yeah, you're always welcome back, lovely E. What are you talking about? So Troy Ave comes out of the room here. TAXSTONE is here. There's stairs or something over there. He sees TAXSTONE and he fires, and they take the bullet out of the railing over there. So basically, the bullet found in the rail confirms Troy Ave's story when he says that TAXSTONE stopped and said to him again, thank you, Kitten's Touch, did I sneeze? And said to him again, what's papping? The trajectory of the bullet is proof that that's what Troy Ave apparently was shooting at, is what she's saying, DK. DK then goes to say that took about 8 seconds, and the camera is explaining that because the only way that it would have took 8 seconds from TAXSTONE to get from where he was to the other side where the camera picked him back up is if he would have stopped. Because if he wouldn't have stopped, it wouldn't have taken 8 seconds for him to get from point A to point B. Because he leaves, because there's no camera over there. Just so I could show y'all again. You see these two. You see this? This is a camera right here, and this is another camera right here. So these two cameras shoot that way and shoot that way. So right here where Tax see the squiggly line, that has that's not on camera. You understand? There's no camera footage where that squiggly line is at. There's no camera's not there. You can't see. You understand what I'm saying? So DK says that's proof that TAXSTONE had to have stopped, because there's no reason why he should have been off of those cameras for so long if he would have been in a continuous motion. If you are enjoying the commentary here, if you are enjoying, not even commentary, if you are enjoying the show, please hit that like button. And if you would like to help support the channel, you could always pull up to the PayPal or the chat or the Cash App. She then shows a video, and Troy shows the video where Troy is firing. Troy gave the gun to Block after that situation. And DK says, told Block to take the gun while he waited for the EMS and the police with Banger's body. DK goes on to say, if you are trying to stop someone from pointing a gun at you, why would you be holding the slide? Okay, so then she showed another image of the gun and says that Troy Ave, says that TAXSTONE had the gun, but Troy Ave's DNA and fingerprints or whatever was found on the slide. And what she's saying is Troy Ave was holding the slide when they were fighting for the gun. She says Casanova's DNA was not found on the gun. DK goes on to say the video shows Block is not a part of the incident. The TMZ video. She then shows the TMZ video, and in the TMZ video, you can see while whatever is happening, Block is not in that situation. Because remember, the defense's allegations is, or the defense is saying basically, their defense is that that TAXSTONE was jumped. So she's trying to show, or she's trying to say, DK is trying to say that TAXSTONE wasn't jumped, because if TAXSTONE was jumped, why wasn't Block helping? She goes on to say that you cannot take points, and I believe she literally said points, away from the prosecution if they decide not to call a witness. Just because they didn't call a witness, that you can't take anything away from the prosecution's case just because they didn't want to call a witness. They have the right to call whichever witnesses or not call whatever witnesses they don't want to call. The prosecution, DK goes on to say you can't shoot people you don't like. DK goes on to say you can't shoot people who punch you. DK goes on to say defendant fired shot with intent to kill. DK then goes on to say your intent at the time of pulling the trigger is what matters. So basically, just so we could be clear, even if you didn't think about killing the person 20 minutes ago, that don't matter. Even if you didn't think about killing the person 10 minutes ago, that don't matter. All that matters is what was your intent when you pulled the trigger. When you pulled the trigger, did you intend on killing that person? Period. That's what matters in order to get the top charge. She then goes on to say, DK goes on to say, you don't shoot people in the heart unless you intend to kill them. DK then goes on to say he didn't just shoot once, he shot twice. DK goes on to say Tax fired at Troy Ave while Troy was on the floor. That proves intent to kill. DK goes on to say Troy, right now, the injuries that Troy suffered has made it so he can't run and jump. He having a problem playing with his kids. DK goes on to say, intent of who you are trying to hit follows the people that you actually hit. So if you're trying to shoot somebody and you're trying to kill them, but you miss and you end up shooting somebody else and killing that person, that intent still goes to that person because you intended to kill somebody. DK goes on to say Maggie Hextell still has issues because of being shot. Chris Vincent had 12 inches of his intestines removed. DK goes on to say firing a gun in a crowded room is reckless endangerment. DK goes on to say when a defendant says what's popping and reaches for his waist, that is criminal possession. Just so we can be clear, so you can know what criminal possession is. Just having a gun is not criminal possession. That's possessing a gun is a crime. But criminal possession is when you have the gun with the intent to use it for like to hurt somebody or intent to use it for a purpose of like to do something with it. You understand what I'm saying? And it's loaded. Also, DK says that he possessed the gun outside of his home or business. DK then went to say, you do not have to prove it beyond a mathematical certainty. Like, you don't have to, like, you ever been in the conversation with somebody and you trying to tell them something and then they trying to make you jump to extreme means in order for them to believe you? Like, you have to, like, and it's like, what the hell, fam? So it don't have to be to a mathematic certainty. It just has to be beyond the reasonable doubt. Beyond anything that's reasonable. DK then goes on to say that TAXSTONE had a willingness to call witnesses to lie. DK then goes on to say the jury is to look at the evidence as a whole, not separately, not in isolation. DK accuses Esquire of saying that he wants the jury to look at everything isolated away from itself, while they don't want you to look at everything isolated away from itself. They want you to look at all of the evidence in its all totality and all together. And then DK ended by saying the verdict must be based on evidence and your reasonable, logical understanding. And then the prosecution closes. Okay, so the judge had a couple of things to say. I'm going to tell you what the judge had to say real quick. So, because some of y'all had some things that you said in the chat that I saw. And so I understand that you guys don't like, this is a lot of stuff. I'm gonna say the judge's part now. So I want y'all to be clear on something. I want to be clear about something. The way a lot of people in the world that we live in dictate whether somebody is right or wrong or whether they believe them or not is usually not very in a fair way. I'm just going to say that. So listen to what the judge says as he charges the jury. He gives the jury their orders. He says, look, the jury and the jury alone, R.I.P. Banger. He says the jury and the jury alone decide whether the witnesses are credible, meaning that the prosecution nor the defense team can tell you whether a witness is credible or not. Nor can the judge. The jury and the jury alone. Nobody can tell you whether the witnesses are credible or not. He goes on to say, the judge's rulings had nothing to do with his opinion or credibility of the witness or guilt of the accused. So whenever somebody did an objection and the judge said sustained or the judge said overruled, that had nothing at all to do with the judge's opinion. That had nothing at all to do with the credibility of the witness. And it had nothing at all to do with the guilt of the accused. The judge goes on to say, do not attempt to ascertain the judge's opinion by the way in which he speaks. So if he's talking and his voice fluctuates, that has nothing to do with any emotion attached to what he's saying. Don't try to ascertain his opinion. Don't try to figure out his opinion or whatever the case is. the judge goes on to say a fair jury doesn't use the fair jury doesn't use prejudices or stereotypes that allows them to influence their decision. He said a verdict should be based on evidence. He also says do not speculate what sentence, if found guilty, the accused is going to receive. That should have nothing to do on your verdict on whether you find somebody guilty or innocent. He said disregard anything that has been stricken from the record or any sustained objections. You are not allowed to use any of that in your deliberating process. He said you must find TAXSTONE not guilty if the people haven't proved their case, they haven't proved guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. He says you must find TAXSTONE not guilty if the people haven't proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. He says Tax does not have to prove his innocence. The defense do not have to prove TAXSTONE is innocent. That's why the defense probably didn't call a certain person to the stand, because they don't have to prove their innocence. The prosecution has to prove the defendant's guilt. Somebody in the comment section was like, well, why didn't they call him to the stand? Or why didn't TAXSTONE take the stand in his own defense? Because the defense doesn't have to prove innocence. The judge says if the people didn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt, then TAXSTONE is to be found not guilty. He goes on to say, the judge, if the people have proved beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find TAXSTONE guilty. He goes on to say, the judge, a reasonable doubt is when you are firmly convinced. It's not speculatory. So you know how you'll be talking to somebody and you'll say something and they'll be like, what if? No, we're not doing that. Copy? Now you see why I just be wanting to kick people? We're not doing what ifs. He says your verdict cannot be based off of speculation. Also, why in the hell do people like having conversations with other people that all they could do is ask questions and speculate? You know, that's not a sign of intelligence, right? That's like a sign of a kid, how smart your kid is. But if you're a grown adult and you think asking questions is a sign of intelligence, fam, no grown adult should think another grown adult asking questions is a sign of intelligence. Then the judge decided to speak on inferences, just so we can be clear. He said you could evaluate a fact proving on any inference based on a fact. So people can't just infer shit out of clear air. The inferences have to be based on a fact. Because if an inference isn't based on a fact, it's just speculatory. And he just basically said you can't base your verdict off of speculation. He goes on to say, the judge, you and you alone are to decide whether you think the witnesses are credible. You and you alone are to decide whether you think the witnesses are credible. The judge says, could witnesses have seen, heard? Was testimony, could witnesses have seen the thing? Could witnesses have heard the thing? Was their testimony consistent? Was their testimony believable? The judge goes on to say, ordinary witnesses cannot testify about opinions. Evaluate their testimony the same as you would other witnesses. So I want to be clear about this. Witnesses, some witnesses can give opinions. Those witnesses are special witnesses. Like if you, like, what do you call them? Like if they're an expert in the field, they can give their opinion. Unless a witness comes from a specialized field, if they're an expert in a field, they can give their opinion on said field that they're an expert in. The judge would let you know which witnesses are considered experts in the eyes of the court. The judge goes on to say, you could believe Judge Clott, by the way, Judge Abraham Clott, goes on to say, you could believe some of the witness's testimony and reject other parts. So if one witness says something you don't believe, you be like, man, I don't believe that. But that same witness could say something else and you could be like, I'm on board. So you could believe some of what a witness say, while you also think that the other stuff that they're saying is BS. The judge goes on to say, if a witness has a motive to lie, you could consider their credibility. The judge goes on to say, you are not required to accept. I wrote the wrong accept. I was like, what the hell? What am I looking at? I wrote that way too fast. You are not required to accept a witness testimony, whether they have motive to lie or not. So even if a witness don't have any motive to lie, that don't mean that you have to accept their testimony as the truth. Damn, it's late. The judge goes on to say, lawyers are allowed to prepare witnesses for trial. There's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, lawyers are actually encouraged to prepare their witnesses for trial, just so we can be clear. So a lawyer preparing their witness to get on the stand and give testimony does not mean that the witness is not giving testimony that's accurate. They're supposed to do that. Said witnesses who are police officers should be evaluated the same way as all other witnesses. So just because a witness is a police officer, that doesn't give what they say more credibility than anyone else. The judge goes on to say, Judge Clott goes on to say, that Tax chose not to testify cannot be held against him. The judge literally told the jury that TAXSTONE not testifying that cannot be held against them. Judge Clott then goes on to say, consciousness of guilt and the telephone call that Dax had, that's up for you to decide whether there was a consciousness of guilt. And then Judge Clott goes on to say, even an innocent person who finds themselves under suspicion might do something untowards to try to prove their innocence. Meaning, just because TAXSTONE made those telephone calls trying to get somebody to come in and say a thing that might not have happened, that doesn't mean that he's guilty. Because an innocent person thinking that they might be found guilty for a crime that they didn't do might try to find some illicit ways or some other type of manners to get out of their situation, even if they're innocent. Judge Clott also said Tax being held in jail while waiting for trial is not evidence of guilt. And then he gave what the actual charges is, but we've already spoke on that. It's late. I did not mean to go 3 whole damn hours. And for everybody that be like, go faster, speed up, I be going pretty quick. I can't help it that it takes this long for me to read all of this stuff and make it clear. I am going to let y'all go. I am super tired. Expect for us to do a live at some point tomorrow. During court, I'm going to try to run outside, maybe before court, depending on what time I get downtown. Maybe before court, I'll go live for a moment. I'm not 100% sure. But if you have enjoyed this show at all, anything about this show, if you enjoyed anything about the show, you can always pull up to the Cash App and or the PayPal, and we're 2 likes away from 200. It'd be so cool to get 200 likes before we get out of here. With that being said, I love y'all. I appreciate everybody that showed up today, everybody that hung in there, even the people that only showed up for a little while. I really do appreciate you guys. You guys are all the best. If you've got anybody still awake in your household, please give them a hug. Tell them you love them. You don't never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Give people their flowers while they still here. Also, before you go to bed and after you wake up, water. I'm telling you, it's good for the body. It's all of the things that we need. Also, I guess I got to take some questions first. All right. Whew. Can I take the questions tomorrow? Could y'all sleep on them questions and we could take the questions tomorrow? Really am tired. I'll give the prosecution and the judge the opportunity tomorrow night. So tomorrow night I'll be taking more questions about the judge and what the prosecution said. So y'all can always just fast forward and to or rewind from here, but fast forward when y'all come into the video so y'all can hear what the prosecution said over or what the judge said over. And we'll come in here and we'll have the conversation tomorrow. So once again, if you got anybody still awake in your household, give them a hug. Tell them you love them. You don't never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Give people their flowers while they're still here. Also, make sure you drink water before you go to bed. Why? Because then you'll wake up tomorrow with more energy. And after you wake up, because water on an empty stomach is great. Your body absorbs the nutrients a lot quicker. Also, whenever we're helping somebody else be the best them that they could be, that's when we being the best us that we could be. So go out there and be great. God first. Shout out to New Line Entertainment. Shout out to Philly. Salute. And shout out to everybody that pulled up today. I really enjoyed the show and I really appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Join the notification game. Hashtag Bronx Bombers. Let's get it. I love y'all. Take care of each other. Hug the kids for me. I haven't forgotten about you, and that's all I got on this one.